Welcome into the Wiltfong Whiparound with Steve Wiltfong. Today is Thursday, July 24th, and I am your host, Josh Newberg. Boy, do we have a big show today. Steve, he's still vacationing with the family, so we got Sam Spiegelman pinch hitting. We're going to get to it. We're going to break it all down. But first, you guys do me a favor and hit subscribe to the Rivals Recruits channel, the best recruiting channel on all of YouTube. Jump on board and hit subscribe. All right. Let's bring in my guy, Sam Spiegelman. We're going to start off in your part of the country, talking a little Texas A&M. They're making a run at some 2027 five-stars. But first, they're also making a run at what's left of the 2026 five-stars. Let's talk Anthony Tank Jones. He narrowed that list down to 3. Sam, how do you break it down?
Yeah, Texas A&M is swinging hard for the five-star edge from Alabama. Listen, nobody is discounting where the Crimson Tide stand in this one and where they have stood for the length of this recruitment. But he's been to Texas A&M the second most out of these finalists. Oregon is also very much in play for this one. Depending on who you ask, you might get a different answer. But I think it's fair to say that even if the Crimson Tide are sitting at number 1, the Aggies are making this a lot closer than people realize. His official visit to Aggie Land went extremely well. He made multiple game day visits there last year. Everyone loves that Mike Elko is a defensive-minded coach, and they have multiple defensive line coaches devoted to his position group. Mm-hmm. I think he sees a lot of opportunity to be a part of a really star-studded top 5 class in College Station, and I think they're giving the Crimson Tide a pretty significant run down the stretch of this recruitment.
Now, how about Tristan Keys? I know he's committed to LSU. We hear a lot about Tennessee. We hear a lot about Miami. Should people be talking about A&M when it comes to LSU five-star commitment Tristan Keys as well?
Yeah, listen, this recruitment is starting to really, percolate whether he's going to stick and play in Baton Rouge, or is he going to flip before the start of his senior season at Hattiesburg High School. Texas A&M should and has been a major contender to flip the five-star away from their rival Tigers. He made multiple game day visits to Kyle Field last season. They have been in contention as one of the teams trending at the top before he committed to LSU. What we've heard over the official visit stretch is that he's looking for a head coach that's very hands-on in his recruitment. Mike Elko has been just that for the Aggies. His relationship with Holman Wiggins, dating back to Coach Wiggins' time in Tuscaloosa, speaks volumes to Tristan Keys. I think they should be considered one of, if not the biggest threat to flip Tristan Keys away from the Tigers.
Yeah, going to be an exciting fall for Texas A&M recruiting. Now, we're not turning the page on 2026, but it's time to start talking 2027 because some of the big names are going to be coming off the board soon. So which five-stars could the Aggies land when it comes to 2027 class?
Yeah, Mike Elko and the staff love hunting for five stars. I think they're in a great position with one of Texas's best in 2027, five-star cornerback John Meredith out of the Dallas area. He's been to Aggie Land several times already, including a visit back last month. He is a top priority for Mike Elko and the staff. We talked about Coach Elko being a defensive-minded head coach. More specifically, he loves being hands-on in the secondary. I think that's really resonated with John Meredith. Schools like Penn State and SMU and Texas are hanging around, but I think A&M is sitting in a really good spot. They're also in a favorable spot with Jalen Brewster, the five-star defensive tackle. Oregon is leading, but listen, this is a kid from Cedar Hill in South Dallas. Texas A&M and Texas as well are not going to go down swinging to Dan Lanning and the Ducks just yet. He's got 2 years of high school football still ahead of him. And A&M loves five stars in the offensive line. Kennedy Brown is the number 1 player in next year's class out of the Houston area. Texas A&M is one of the in-state frontrunners for Kennedy Brown. They're also very much in play with Cooper Hackett, the five-star offensive tackle from Oklahoma, who my early prediction is on Texas Tech, but like Oklahoma, A&M is not going anywhere in that race just yet.
All right, A&M fans, talk to Sam and I. How are you guys feeling? Not just about 2026, but also 2027. Let us know. All right, Sam, let's talk a little Texas recruiting because the Horns have been the talk of July, surging into the top 5. Tyler Atkinson, the big flip of James J.J. Johnson. Now, that class still has a few spots remaining to fill, but 2027 is heating up. We don't want to fall behind here. Let's talk in-state quarterback Kavian Bryant. Are the Horns making him a priority?
Absolutely. Listen, AJ Milwee and Steve Sarkisian have offered two quarterbacks in the 2027 class. The first being Peyton Houston, who myself and Steve Wiltfong have entered picks for USC with Pop Houston.
Mm-hmm.
We expect him to come off the board sometime during his junior season. And they offered Kavian Bryant out of Palestine High School out there in East Texas this summer. He wowed that staff during elite camp on June 1st. He picked up an offer, and since June 15th, guess what? Steve Sarkisian and AJ Milwee were the first teams in touch with him. They haven't taken their foot off the gas with Kavian. Florida State, SMU, Texas Tech are all swinging away here, but Texas is the team setting the pace in this recruitment. They don't offer a lot of quarterbacks, and when they zero in, history shows that they tend to get their guy. I like where they're sitting early on with Kavian as he's exploring his options further.
All right, so much to talk about when it comes to the Horns in 2027, but we're going to focus on the trenches to finish this segment. So where are the top targets on the offensive line standing with Texas in 2027?
Yeah, we talked about Kennedy Brown just a moment ago with Texas A&M. Well, Kyle Flood and the Longhorns, they've made a habit out of keeping some of the best offensive linemen in the state. They were leading for a good chunk of time with Felix Ojo. They're hoping not to make a similar stumble toward the back end with someone like Kennedy Brown. Speaking with Kennedy at Future 50 last month, he said Flood, Sarkisian, the Longhorns, they're giving him every reason to stay home. He has a national recruitment. You look at someone like Ismael Camara out of East Texas. He's originally from France. He's the number 3 interior offensive lineman in the country for 2027. He loves Kyle Flood. He was able to get an early offer from Texas. He's worked out there over the summer. He's a guy that's very high on the Longhorns early on, along with A&M. And then Demarion Johnson, another East Texas offensive tackle. When it comes to offensive tackle, Kyle Flood has been exceptional evaluating the state of Texas, and this is a guy that he really fell in love with and offered in January. He's visited Austin a few times. He worked out there this summer. He's another big blue chip offensive lineman that the Longhorns are high on in the state of Texas for 2027.
All right. How about on the defensive side of the ball, on the defensive line? Who are the Horns trending for when it comes to 2027 top recruits?
Yeah, we talked about Jalen Brewster with Texas A&M. Texas is also in the mix there. He worked out in Austin, but let's throw a couple more names at you. Zane Rowe at the Rivals 300, a one-time Sooners verbal commit as an underclassman, has visited Austin a few times since reopening his recruitment and backing off that Sooners verbal. He says he knows every single coach on a first and last name basis over in Austin. He's definitely a name to keep an eye on out of Dallas. Adrian Redmond also worked out for this staff last month. He's playing for DeSoto High School. You know that DeSoto has a couple of alums playing on the 40 acres. This is a guy that Kenny Baker and Steve Sarkisian love on the defensive line. Caden McCartney of Rivals 300 Edge out of Houston, very high on the Longhorns, born for next year in state. And then Amari Vickerson, a national recruitment, a big defensive lineman out of the Houston area. Texas and Texas A&M seem to be going back and forth with Amari Vickerson. I like where Texas sits early on in that recruitment, though.
All right. Let's talk a little LSU recruiting. Now, the Tigers have been dishing out a bunch of QB offers in the 2027 class. So who do you think Joe Sloan has traction with right now in the 27 class?
Yeah, I think there's two quarterbacks right near the top of Joe Sloan's list. And one guy he really is very familiar with is Elijah Haven, the 5-star quarterback out of Baton Rouge, the Rivals industry rankings, number 1 at the position. Listen, that relationship with Joe Sloan is as strong as any relationship in Haven's recruitment. You can certainly make the argument that the Gators are the team recruiting Elijah Haven the hardest right now, but no relationship is as strong as Elijah's is with Joe Sloan. The familiarity of playing in Baton Rouge, the first offensive coordinator really devote their attention and believe in him as a D1 quarterback. And since then, that relationship has continued to flourish. I think LSU will be there until the end with Elijah Haven when he's ready to make that decision. The other, and stop traffic if you've already heard this last name, Colton Nussmeier. I was speaking with Garrett Nussmeier a couple of months ago, and he said, my little brother is going to be the best quarterback in the family. This is coming from a potential Heisman Trophy favorite this year, Josh. But because of situation, because of happenstance, Colton has spent a lot of time in Baton Rouge over the years during Garrett's recruitment to LSU, and since he's become the starting quarterback for the Tigers. His dad, also the offensive play caller in New Orleans for the Saints. Joe Sloan was one of the first to offer Colton Nussmeier. He's worked out there 2 summers in a row. He is very high on LSU's board for 2027. I fully think that the Tigers are the favorite to land the legacy quarterback target out of Texas when it comes time for him to make a decision.
All right. So we know there's more 5 stars on the board. Talk to LSU fans. Who do they need to keep an eye on right now when it comes to 2027 studs?
Yeah, it's still early, but Louisiana, as always, produces a high degree of blue chip talent. They're also not only home to Elijah Haven, the number 1 quarterback in 2027. What about Ahmad Hudson, number 1 tight end in the class, elite dual sport athlete? LSU, you mentioned it. Joe Sloan offered Ahmad Hudson after his first varsity start for Ruston as a freshman. They've continued to build on that relationship. Ahmad just worked out in Baton Rouge for a second consecutive summer. Florida, Nebraska, A&M, all really covet Ahmad, but I think LSU is going to be really hard to beat in the end for the number 1 tight end in the country. Zyron Forstall, a guy that our scouting department here at Rivals absolutely loves. He's going to play his junior season at IMG Academy in Florida. The Gators, Georgia, Texas, USC, you name it. They all love Zyron Forstall, but no team is recruiting Zyron as hard as Brian Kelly and the Tigers. He was one of the first offers in the state of Louisiana for this 2027 cycle. Even if he isn't going to be playing in New Orleans for his junior season, I got a hunch that he's going to be back on campus, back home in Louisiana quite a bit. And again, I think LSU is going to be really hard to beat with Zyron in the end. And then Easton Royal, one of the best receivers in the country, absolute speed demon out of New Orleans. He got his early LSU offer this spring. He visited Baton Rouge. He visited Florida, Florida State. Texas is coming on exceedingly strong with Easton Royal of late. But I think, again, LSU has forged a strong relationship early on. He visited for the Bayou Splash. He worked out for the entire coaching staff, and they love this in-state kid. There's a lot of really good receivers in the state of Louisiana for 2027. Easton might be the staff's favorite, and they feel like they have a great shot at landing him when he's ready. He's another player that these LSU fans better get familiar with early on.
Yeah, the state of Louisiana is loaded for 2027. LSU fans, talk to Sam and I. How are you guys feeling? We know 2026 is going well, but who is your priority targets for 2027? Let us know. Comment section below.